and people who are faithful to the devil. That's the division. The Bible is not a collection of very cute stories for children. The Bible has, in every single sentence, it has a message. If we want to know how to behave, what to do, even when we go for election, for whom to vote, all we have to do is to open the Bible. Let me give you a few examples. The Israelis are being attacked at that time, many years ago, by the Philistines. They come to the seer, to Saul, and they say to him, that's it. We must have some change. And the change that we want to have is unity. Here is the first message of the Bible. You face an enemy. First and foremost, make sure that there is unity. And then come message 2, number 2. And he thinks, the seer, the prophet Samuel thinks, who should I appoint as a king that will unite all the tribes? Oh, he says, here is a man who just recently defeated the Ammonite. His name is Saul. Yes, he comes from the smallest tribe, but he has accomplished the most important thing for a nation, to protect it, to fight its enemies. Here is the second message, a clear message, which says, you, the man who heads a nation, a people, call it president, king, prime minister, his first and foremost duty is to protect its people. And then when you have the list of candidates, you look at them and you ask yourself, who can protect us? That's the person we vote for. And the message is in the Bible. The message is in the Bible as it is for every single thing in a life, because the Bible is a viable, vibrant, vital document, if you want to call it a document. And then another person emerged after Saul, King David. King David was not holy. King David has sinned a lot. And yet, Jesus prized himself in Revelation chapter 22, I believe, prized himself, and he said, I am a descendant of David, King David. And the Jews, for the Jews, Jewish people, King David is everything. Why? How come? Because he provided them with the most precious thing that a head of state can provide his people. Security. You are not going to be killed. You are going to live in peace. This is the reason why King David is so admired. And then there's another message. How did he do it? He extended the borders of Israel. He did not shrink the borders of Israel. The message is from the Bible. And as a message in the Bible, it's holy, holy, holy. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. It was 1945, 63 years ago, at the end of the year, I had a certain mission. In the middle of the year, the future founder of the State of Israel, Ben-Gurion, came to Paris to meet with all the people who were active in the so-called clandestine operation in Europe, smuggling Holocaust survivors to Palestine and smuggling arms. We had a meeting in Paris. At that time, I was the right-hand man of the person who was in charge of the operation in Italy, which was the major country, the first country that was liberated in Europe, and therefore it was the first country from where all the operation of smuggling Jews, boats, and arms were conducted. The rest of Europe was still not liberated. We had very great difficulties in the course of operation to do the two things that we were supposed to do. Once France was liberated, I came to my boss, Yuda Razi was his name, and I said to him, why do we have to encounter the difficulties in Italy where we have the British spies, and it's very difficult for us to get the people from Germany, from Austria, to cross the border to Italy, and they immediately when we cross, the spy already know where they're going, they locate the boat, and we have problems. Why can't we use France, which is also more independent? He said, you know what? We are going pretty soon to the meeting with the old man. The old man was just 50 years old. And tell him. So we came there, we had the meeting, discussed many things, and then he asked any other remarks, and I raised my hand and I said, Ben Gurion, we didn't even approach it with Mr. We called him Ben Gurion. Ben Gurion, these are our problems when we operate to Italy, and I think the time has come to open another way to operate from France. Without wasting 1 minute, he raised his head, pointed to me, and he said to me, you do it. I didn't expect this. It was much easier to be number 2 than number 1. But the old man said, and all you have to do is follow his advice. So I switched over from Italy to Holland and Belgium, and I decided that 46 will be the beginning of 46, the first year that we'll bring the first boat from Belgium, from Western Europe to Israel. Fine. We got the boat, we started equipping it, we smuggled the people from Germany into Belgium and Holland, which was also quite an operation because the British didn't like the idea that suddenly people disappear from the camps, not concentration camp, but still camps in Europe, in Germany, and they are moving somewhere else. But under the disguise of military exercises on the border of Belgium and Germany, military operations, military exercises by the Jewish Brigade, we have crossed most of the people to Belgium. Then we discovered that the boat can still accommodate more people. We decided that we have to get more, but in the meantime, the British discovered our trick of the military exercises, so we had to look for other ways to bring them, and nothing was excluded. A Jewish soldier was killed in a traffic accident in Germany, and we decided to have 16 trucks crossing the border to pick him up in different places. And crossing again the border in 16 other places, coming back. And we got going there, the buses were empty, coming back, they had the honor guard. And the honor guard, you should know who they were. We had only one problem when we asked the people who is very brave. And most of the young people marched forward, and we said, okay, you will be in the casket. Then all of them forgot that they are very brave. None of them wanted to do it. Anyhow, it was enough to bring the few hundred people that we still needed to cross the border, and it worked. But at that time, we didn't have cell phones. And we had to think about everything that can happen coming from Belgium to Marseille. A truck can be disabled. You have to know where to repair it, where to get parts. Some health problem can occur. You have to know where there's a hospital. So I went from Belgium to Marseille very slowly, jotting down the places where we can take care if something happens, and eventually I reached Marseille. I had a group of French people who were in the Maquis, and they cooperated with us, and I had with them a lunch in a French restaurant, and obviously they decided that I have to try the real French food, and they gave me onion soup. And in the course of the discussion, they said to me, "Did you hear about Le Chambon?" I said, "No." "What is Le Chambon?" They say, "Le Chambon is a Huguenot village." These are Huguenots that during the Catholic massacre, they escaped to a mountainous area close to the Swiss border. And they have a pastor by the name of Trocmé, André Trocmé. And André Trocmé is a man who saved more than 5,000 Jewish people. I heard this, and I said, I must visit the man. And on the way back to Belgium, I stopped at Le Chambon, met André Trocmé, and he took me the streets of the village. It was less than a town. Showed me everything. Suddenly an elderly woman was there walking. He introduced me. He said, "This is a Jewish man from the Holy Land." She came over, embraced me, and said to me, "You are from the chosen people of God." And I saw the education, I realized the education of André Trocmé. Everyone in this village was hiding Jews. In fact, in one of the cases, when they did not notice a sudden approach of German army, they caught the nephew of André Trocmé with 12 people in his house, and obviously they killed him and they killed the 12 people. André Trocmé was a few times in police custody, in prison. They couldn't prove anything because the fact that they were living in a mountainous area, they had scouts that could see whenever either French police or German army approaches the place, and then they took the people into the forest, or if they noticed that there are dogs, they even crossed the border into Switzerland. And then in the evening, I'm sitting with him and with his wife Magda across from the fireplace, and I ask him, "Pastor André, how could you do it with all the danger to yourself?" And he became angry, and he said to me, "What do you mean? I'm the pastor. I'm responsible for the flock." André Trocmé has a very conspicuous tree when you come out from Yad Vashem. Obviously, I was there when we planted the tree, and I brought his wife Magda, who was still alive, although the tree now is the tree in honor of both André Trocmé and his wife Magda. Why do I tell you this? Because this is the first time that an Israeli guy who had never had any contact but a negative contact with Christians, which is the British police, mandatory police, suddenly discovered they're real Christian people. They're André Trocmé and his people, like you. They're real Christian people. The people who follow the Bible, who are faithful to the Bible. I had a meeting with a group of Catholic bishops, and I started the meeting by saying to them, "For 2,000 years, you have defied Jesus." And they looked at me, and then one of them said, "Why do you say so?" And then I quoted the same quote that I made at the beginning of my address here, of Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14. I say, Jesus has torn down the wall of hatred, and what you have done for 2,000 years, you have erected the wall of hatred. Jesus has made us one, said that we have to make it one. What you have done, you have put the Jewish people in ghettos, separated them, and not one. And after a few minutes, they said, you're right. And the Pope and the present Pope are changing it. This is the reality, but the reality is much deeper. The reality is much deeper in the sense that anything that happened in the course of history was created by God. It is a series of missions impossible. And I'll give a lot of examples. Because the whole history of the state of Israel is a history of missions impossible. A young officer once entered my office when I called him. I gave an order to occupy a certain hill in the south against the Egyptians, and I asked him to take his platoon, which is 30 people, and occupy the place. And when the command was relayed to him, he felt that he could not accomplish it, and he came over, asked for a meeting with me. And when he came over, he said to me, Commander, it's impossible. And when I heard it, I lost my temper, and I said to him, out of my unit. Because there is nothing impossible. The state of Israel is one big impossible that was established. 50,000 people, armed, quote unquote armed, that had only 10,000 rifles. Half of them haven't seen a rifle but for 1 week, facing a few 100,000 well-trained and well-armed armies. And they prevailed. 3 tanks. They had 3 tanks that 3 British officers married to Jewish women have smuggled from the British Army, facing a few 100 tanks. And they prevailed. And they had a very big air force of bombers. These were 1-engine planes that they dropped through the window, opened the window, and they dropped a grenade. This was the bombing. Facing real aircrafts. And they prevailed. And they prevailed because they had one thing that the other side did not have. The commander-in-chief. Everywhere you go in Israel, you see the mission impossible. And I'm sorry that so many of the Christian groups bypass it, and they don't understand that by coming to these places, they are showing the people what God has done for Israel. For instance, you go to Safad, the capital of the Galilee. 500 people facing 11,000 people. 500 people poorly armed, facing 11,000 people that have been provided with the high parts of the city and the strong parts of the city, the police station. And suddenly the 11,000 disappeared. The 5,000 prevailed. Mission impossible was accomplished, and we should go to that place to see what God has done. Or you go down to Yad Mordechai. 150 people under arms, facing a few thousand Egyptians. And there is a display until now of the fields of the Egyptians. And they prevailed. And here I am a young officer, and there were many like me, I'm not an exception, with 200 people starting as a company commander into the Egyptian army, holding by some post, Hartiye, from three sides, Egyptian, only in one place I'm connected to the area which was under Israeli control. 200 people. And every single day, at least 2,000 Egyptian people are surrounding us and bombarding us. At 2,000 against 200. And not for 1 minute did I have the doubt that I will not prevail. Crazy, they said to me. The crazy officer who walks with the Bible. And on day 19, 180 of the 200, most of them wounded, some of them dead, including the commander who is wounded, but yet he has to act. And I wake up. There are already only 2 shifts. We don't have people for 3 shifts. And I wake up the 10 people who are exhausted, and I said to them, your brothers were manning the posts through the night, and you have to relieve them. And they get up. And we start doing the usual thing that Joshua has done, going back to the tradition of the Bible, and firing, going around the stronghold and firing as though we are a lot of people, creating the impression that we are not 20 but many more, doing the same thing that Joshua has done, the same thing that Gideon has done, because there's nothing new even in military science. Everything is there in the Bible. Eight o'clock, which is the usual time that the Egyptian hordes surround us. No Egyptians. They came to the realization that they cannot get the stronghold that supposedly a few hundred Israeli hold. Only 20 were actually holding them at that time. And this is again a mission impossible accomplished by him. So when you come to Israel, you go from place to place and you realize, not here, but there, on the ground, the glory of God. There are 3 issues which I want to deal with them, related to the complex which is called the Israeli-Palestinian complex. The issues is, I want to deal them for a simple reason, because I consider you a very important link in bringing the truth to the world. The issues are refugees, Jerusalem, and the land of Israel. Truth is a very, very precious commodity. And apparently it's such a precious commodity that the Muslims cannot afford to keep it. Let's take Jerusalem. Jerusalem, a holy city to 3 religions? Indeed? Since when? We know that it's a religious place for the Jewish religion. We know that it is a religious place for the twin of the Jewish religion, the other Bible faith religion, the Christian religion, which emerged from the Jewish religion, and which, by the way, quite some significant parts in the New Testament are found almost word in word in cave number 3 of the Dead Sea Scrolls that were recovered from cave number 3, and among them the crown jewel of the Bible, the Sermon of the Mount. Only because of the Sermon of the Mount, I implore each Christian group to go to the Mount of Beatitudes, and I try to convince them to have the services there on a Sunday on the Mount of Beatitudes. And when they come there, we read the Sermon of the Mount, and it never happened that we didn't have a lot of people start crying there, because this is the crown jewel of the Bible. And almost word by word, it was discovered in cave number 3 of the Qumran area. And then you ask yourself, there was no contact between Jesus and these people who lived there. And you come to one conclusion. There was some kind of a matchmaker. And probably this was the harbinger of Christianity. And this is John the Baptist, because he was the only one who was close to these people, and the only one who had contact with Jesus. And there's no other explanation. So John the Baptist was much more than a Baptist. So, coming back, a city for 3 religions, since when? When Muhammad's hordes have conquered the Middle East, not because they were so strong and smart, but because Byzantium, because Christianity at that time was very weak and not smart. In many cases in war, you win not because you are smart and good and great and strong, but the other side is weak and not smart. And when they conquered the Middle East, they established their headquarters in Damascus. Nothing in Jerusalem. Even the branch of the headquarters of Damascus was a city by the name of Ramla. Jerusalem is the holy city for you, and you don't do anything with it? You don't establish yourself in this city? As I said, the truth is very precious, and the Muslims, in spite of the oil money, could not afford to have it. Then comes statistics. 1906, in the General Geographic, a United States magazine, which appeared in the month of June 1906, the ambassador of the United Kingdom, known as Great Britain, was about to leave his post as ambassador, and before leaving he decided to have pilgrimage to the Holy Land. He came to the Holy Land and he said exactly what Mark Twain said: desolated, except for some cities. Jerusalem, he said, had 60,000 people. 40,000 of them were Jews, and he was not a Jew lover. 15,000 were Christians, and not even 10% were Muslims. They ruled the country. It's under a Muslim rule. They claim that this is the holy city. How come they have such a minority there? Some Muslims who came there because Christian and Jews provided some income to them. It was never a center of the Muslim religion. And the facts prove it, not what I say, but what I quote. I'm sorry that in the meeting that we had with the Minister of Defense after the Six-Day War, when I raised my hand and I suggested to establish on Temple Mount, symbolically, a Jewish synagogue and a Christian church, it was dismissed by him because he said, without this we have already problems with, especially the Europeans. On matters of principle, you couldn't care less if you have problems with someone or not. And I think that since we did not adhere to principles, religious principles, we are punished until today. This is as far as Jerusalem is concerned. The Holy Land. The Holy Land was a desolated country. As I said, not only Mark Twain, and again the British ambassador, and then General Allenby, when they brought him the air photographs of the country, said, there's nothing here. But even Muslim leaders admitted it. In 1920, the father of the man who became later the king of Jordan, Abdullah, and Faisal, who became later the king of Iraq, the first king of Iraq, Sharif Hussein. Sharif in Arabic is the man who is in charge of the holy places of Mecca and Medina, who was kicked out by the Saudis, said, we are trying to settle the Holy Land and we don't succeed. And the only people, and he said it, the only people who can do it are the Jewish people, because they have, and that's the point, they have an historic connection to the land. Admitted by an Arab leader. And no one got up in the Arab world and said, who gave you the right to say it? And then there was an agreement signed by the head of the Zionist organization, Professor Chaim Weizmann, who later became the first president of Israel, and King Faisal, before he became king of Iraq, the son of Hussein, an agreement which says, you, the Jewish people, will be the rulers of the Holy Land, which included, by the way, Jordan, while we, the Arabs, will have the rule over Iraq and Syria. And they took a picture together in Aqaba. And you can see the signed agreement. And you can see their picture. Not with very happy faces, but still the picture there together. And not one Arab leader got up and said, my goodness, who gave you the right to do it? Why didn't they get up? Because it was insignificant. No one lived in this country. This is the solemn truth. Why did not by the way, why did not the agreement materialize? Because at the last minute, the British had to yield to the French pressure and give up Syria. So he remained only with Iraq. And he said, I didn't get Syria. The agreement is not an agreement. And then we come to the last issue, the issue of the refugees. The War of Independence was actually a war not only against the Arabs, but also against the British administration, which supported the Arabs. Brigadier General Clayton, a man of the British Secret Police, Secret Arm, was in the Middle East with pockets full of money, and he was the man who went from one country to the other, from Egypt to Iraq to Syria and to Transjordan, Jordan, and inciting them, encouraged them to attack Israel. He was the man. And in certain cases, he bribed. We don't know all the bribes that he gave, but at least we know one bribe that he gave to the Secretary of State, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Syria, who later became the Prime Minister of Syria. He gave him money. They did not even dare to think that they'll enter. They were afraid. The Egyptian army was poor in spite of its numbers. It was a determination of the British government, and when I say British, I mean government, the ruling people, and I don't mean the mass of the people there. It was a decision to prevent the establishment of the State of Israel in spite of the fact that it has been approved by the United Nations, and Britain did not vote neither for nor against it. It was a determination to prevent the establishment of this state. It was a determination, and this is the thing that I will not excuse them. It was a determination to serve the devil and not serve God. I can excuse them many things, but that they joined the devil, I want from them till today, like the Germans, who get up and they say, we have failed. We ask for remorse. We express our remorse for it. And I want to hear the same thing from the British government. But not only this. They have started to work with the state to put pressure on the State Department. And in spite of the fact that President Truman approved the establishment of the State of Israel, the State Department started making difficulties. And one of the difficulties is the provision of arms. The borders were completely open to the Arab countries for people to come into the area of Palestine and to smuggle as many arms as they want. But Jews were prevented from doing the same thing. They couldn't bring neither arm nor people. It was a one-way traffic only for those who were against the establishment of the State of Israel. And this is something that we should never forget. And it was worse than this. Immediately after the declaration by the United Nations, immediately afterwards, they started with attacks on every single Jewish settlement from the north to the south to the Negev. In some places, in most places, they failed. In the mixed cities, where in some of them they had a majority, they escaped. They escaped from Tiberias. They escaped from Safad. They escaped from Jaffa, which was next to Tel Aviv. They escaped from Haifa. In most of the places they escaped, they failed. In some places they succeeded in small groups. Here, at the Etzion area, near Hebron, they took captive all the people, tortured them, and killed them, and carried their heads. Yet, they had to leave the country. They had to leave because, for two reasons. The Arab armies told them, leave for a week, for 2 weeks. Otherwise, we cannot operate. And then when we succeed, you come back. And reason number 2, they saw their leaders leave the country. Their leaders were already in Beirut and in Cairo. And if the leader escaped, it means you should also escape. The Jewish people in Palestine had nothing to do with the creation of the refugee problem. 2 groups had to do with it. One, as I said, the Arab people, and the other one, the United Nations, which was very happy to have a new mission supporting forever and ever these refugees. We had refugees in the world before. We had refugees in a large scales of millions when Pakistan was established. There were Indians who left the area which was allotted to Pakistan, and there were Muslims who left India to go to the area of Pakistan. There was a giant immigration problem of millions of people. Yet the international community has not advanced one single penny to settle these refugees. After World War I, there was exchange of population between Turkey and Greece. And yet the international community did not advance one single penny to settle these people. And after World War II, there were hundreds of thousands of Germans who were living for hundreds of years in Eastern Europe. And they created the problem of refugees. And yet the international community did not advance one single penny to settle them. And here, suddenly, to the relatives of the oil companies, of the oil owners, we have to advance money just so because there are some people and many people in the United Nations that it provides them with a good, healthy income. You don't have where to invest your money in your countries. You don't have to invest anymore in the health issues, in education, in other things, that you have to give your money through your government to the United Nations for this outrageous thing. Be happy to have a new mission supporting forever and ever these refugees. We had refugees in the world before. We had refugees in a large scales of millions when Pakistan was established. There were Indians who left the area which was allotted to Pakistan, and there were Muslims who left India to go to the area of Pakistan. There was a giant immigration problem of millions of people. Yet the international community has not advanced one single penny to settle these refugees. After World War I, there was exchange of population between Turkey and Greece. And yet the international community did not advance one single penny to settle these people. And after World War II, there were hundreds of thousands of Germans who were living for hundreds of years in Eastern Europe. And they created the problem of refugees. And yet the international community did not advance one single penny to settle them. And here, suddenly, to the relatives of the oil companies, of the oil owners, we have to advance money just so because there are some people and many people in the United Nations that it provides them with a good, healthy income. You don't have where to invest your money in your countries. You don't have to invest anymore in the health issues, in education, in other things, that you have to give your money through your government to the United Nations for this outrageous thing. The involvement of the British was much more. Ben Yehuda Street here. In February 1948, 2 trucks with 2 tons of high explosives, driven by the British, loaded by the British, detonated by the British, not by Arabs. Killed more than 100 people and wounded hundreds. And I was there. I saw the thing that happened. I saw the heads and the legs and the hands strewn all over the street, made by Great Britain. And a week earlier, a truck demolished the Palestine Post, the forerunner of the Jerusalem Post, driven by a British, loaded by a British, detonated by British. So this was the second part of the unholy Trinity. The third part was that in many of the attacks on the Jewish communities, we heard commands in German. Here is the unholy Trinity that emerged in the War of Independence. Unholy Trinity. The Arabs, the British, and the Nazi German. And they failed, and they will fail, because they serve the devil. And let me make one remark about the Germans, who many of them escaped after World War II to Arab countries. All the leaders known to us, with one exception, all of them converted to Islam. To show you their deep roots in Christianity. Quote unquote, deep roots in Christianity. Overnight, they converted to Islam. So what are the prospects now? There is no doubt that sooner or later we'll have war both with the Hezbollah and Hamas. Not the slightest doubt. The accumulation of arms in these countries, in these areas, in Gaza and in Lebanon, is already doubled the reservoir of arms that they had before. Of course, they don't operate independently. They operate on the instruction of Iran. But once there is war, there's only one way to crush them. And this is the only military way. By bombardment, among other things. And there are going to be a lot of civilian people killed, because all the fortifications and all the locations of the arm are within a civilian population. Anyone who visited southern Lebanon could see on the fortifications could see hospitals, kindergartens, and schools put there on purpose. And it behooves on us to start and send the message. Don't be surprised if civilians will be killed. This is not the fault of the Israelis, this is the fault of these people. And the message should go out. And it should be action. As James said in the last verse of chapter 2, he said, faith without action, they still use the old translation of work, but it's action. Faith without action is dead. Indeed, not only faith will be dead, but the faithful will be dead. So we have to act. We have to pray and act, because God supplies us with the ingredients to prepare bread, but He does not bake the bread for us. We have to do the baking. There are actions that we have to do. And we have to act because there is a special political constellation in the world, which is a result of a story which I'll tell you, and this will be the end of my remarks. A king decided that he wants to go hunting. So he called his prime minister and asked him, Mr. Prime Minister, is the weather going to be a nice weather? And the prime minister said, of course, my king. It's wonderful. Well, they mounted the horses, and after a short distance, they passed the road where a farmer was standing there with his jackass. And the farmer said to the king, bewildered, "My king, where are you going now?" He said, "I'm going hunting." He said, "You can't." "Why can't I?" "Because it's going to rain cats and dogs." And he said, "It's not going to rain. My prime minister promised me that it's going to be a nice weather." Well, lo and behold, after half an hour, it starts raining, cats and dogs. And the king went back to the palace, to his palace, angry, and asked to bring the farmer. The farmer came over, and he asked him, "How did you know that it's going to rain?" He said, "Very simple. Any time it's going to rain, my jackass drops his ears." Oh? The king immediately fired his prime minister and appointed the jackass to be a prime minister. Since then, the rest of the jackasses in the world became very envious. And they became all over Europe prime ministers. This is the explanation.